all councillors in attendance, save Mayor McClellan, who's unable to make it this evening.
Okay, good. Thank you, everybody, for being prompt this evening. My comment would be that we're not here. Beer's not here for us to enjoy. It's here for us to look after for our grandchildren and great-grandchildren. So continue to do green things, please. Okay, Mr. McRoberts, are we what do we need? A motion or?
Call to order, Deputy Mayor, and then go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say just the call to order, which you had with your opening remarks, and then we do have the land acknowledgement. Would you like me to provide that for council tonight, Deputy Mayor Fisher?
Yes, please.
Okay. I would just like to acknowledge that the land we stand upon today is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee and neutral peoples. Next on the agenda is the confirmation of the agenda.
Have a mover and a seconder, please.
I have Councillor Deal and Councillor Chartrand.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Pecuniary, anyone? Nobody's speaking up. That's good. Okay. What's
See any
next?
hands up, Deputy Mayor?
Pardon me. What's next?
Have the minutes of the previous meeting. So we do have a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from May 17th and the special meeting council minutes from May 24th.
Can we do that in one motion?
Yes, one motion, please.
Thank you. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please?
I have Councillor McLellan and Councillor Morrison.
Thank you very much. All in favor? Thank you. Carried.
Next, we have our public meetings, hearings, and delegations. So our first item is the delegation of Phil Beard with the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority regarding the Memorandum of Understanding. So we can call upon Phil now.
Okay. Welcome, Mr. Beard. Thank you very much for taking the time this evening to join us.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Fisher and members of council, and Councillor McClellan is going to assist me with this presentation, so I'll maybe ask Councillor McClellan to make some opening remarks, and I'll share my screen and pull up the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Phil. While you're busy doing that, my opening statement is the Ministry of Environment and Conservation and Parks requires all conservation authorities to send an outline of the services and programs that they will be providing now and as of January 1st, 2024. The MVCA sent a copy of the MVCA's inventory to all member municipalities on February 25th for their review and comment. As of January 1st, 2024, conservation authorities will only be able to levy municipalities for provincially mandated services unless they have an agreement with their municipalities regarding locally important services that require levy support. With that, Phil, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Can everybody see my screen okay? Is this presentation up?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, great. So I'll just give you a little context before I go through this. Maitland Valley went through all of its services and infrastructure in 2014 and decided to focus on doing some important things really well. So we were a bit in advance of this exercise, not knowing back then that the province was going to do this. And we did that because we have very limited resources. So just as context again, in 2022, we've just got back to the same staffing level that we had in 1995. Oh. And see if I can get to the next slide. There we go. So I'll just go through our mandatory services first. And the first one is natural hazards, flooding, erosion, and drought. So that encompasses our flood forecasting and warning system, emergency response, maintaining flood and erosion control structures, which we enlist and gauge, keeping floodplain mapping up to date, and reviewing planning and development applications in natural hazard areas. And we're also required by the province to do operation and asset management plans for all those structures and ice management plans in areas where ice jamming is an issue, such as Goderich and Port Albert. The second mandatory service is conservation areas. So that includes the management, development of all our conservation areas, of which we have 28 conservation areas encompassing 4,600 acres of land. They're used for passive recreation by the public. And over the last 2.5 years, we've seen an incredible upsurge in terms of the use of these areas. And we only have 3 staff to look after all of that land. The third area that is considered a mandatory service, or third and fourth, is drinking water source protection under the Clean Water Act. And that is currently funded 100% by the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. And they've guaranteed funding for that program for the next 2 years. We also have a long-standing partnership with the province for monitoring surface and groundwater across the watershed. And Ministry of Environment covers the cost of the analysis and reporting, and MVCA covers the cost of collecting the samples for them. And as of December 31st, 2024, we're required to develop a watershed management strategy for all our mandatory services. So the only service that we have that the province doesn't consider mandatory is watershed stewardship. So that's our extend service, our forestry or reforestation services, and watershed monitoring services. So it's kind of hard to believe that this is the main reason conservation authorities were formed 50 years ago, but the province doesn't consider it to be a mandatory service. So we're very fortunate in the Maitland watershed. Over 75% of our watershed is used for agriculture, and we have some of the best agricultural land in Ontario. The Maitland River is one of the best smallmouth bass fishing rivers in southern Ontario. Lake Huron Shoreline has some of the best beaches in Ontario for tourism, and our woodlots are highly valued for hardwoods by the forest industry. But these resources are under a lot of stress, whether it's from climate change, invasive species like the emerald ash borer, development, or extreme weather events. So there's multiple pressures on our forests and rivers and soil. And this means that it's more important than ever for us to work with landowners to help them to implement appropriate stewardship practices. Some of the key stewardship practices that we are promoting in the Maitland watershed, if we want to have healthy forests and rivers, are restoring floodplains, river valleys, riparian areas, and wetlands. To protect our agricultural soils, we're working with farmers to encourage the adoption of cover crops to help them keep soil and nutrients on the land and out of water courses. We're also helping them to develop and implement stormwater management systems that help to slow the runoff during major storm events. Our stewardship service is there to support landowners and help them address these challenges of property. So we're the technical resource to support them, and we help them to apply for funding opportunities. For restoration, we meet with the landowner to help them plan their project and help them apply for various funding programs and coordinate any planting projects with a contractor. Another key aspect of stewardship is our watershed health monitoring. We monitor to understand the state of the watershed, identifying emerging issues, and provide recommendations on this local data. For us to be effective on the ground, we need good data and science to guide us. That's why monitoring is such an important piece of the service, because you can't manage what you don't measure. So the levy support for stewardship services provides us a base amount of funding, stable funding. Without the levy, we simply would not be able to deliver stewardship programs such as the Huron Clean Water Project, the Wellington Rural Clean Water Project, and this baseline funding allows us to leverage other funding sources to do work in the watershed. Stable funding also helps us to keep experienced, qualified staff that landowners can trust. And it helps us to maintain good long-term working relationships with landowners, community partners, and funding partners. We're also a small organization, so MVCA's stewardship staff also provides support in other service areas, such as conservation areas and flood safety. So one of the other Category 2 services that we have is the Huron Clean Water Project that we deliver for Huron County. And our staff work with landowners and community groups to help them with their applications, present projects to the review committee. We inspect the completed projects and issue the payment. And the County of Huron provides funding to MVCA for the delivery of this clean water project. And it's delivered by a team of stewardship staff at MVCA and ABCA. And the staff have different areas of expertise, from erosion control to restoration. And a stable stewardship team is key to delivering this program. The other program that we offer is the Falls Reserve and Wawanog campgrounds. Both campgrounds must fund their operations and infrastructure with the revenue raised through user fees. There's no levy funding used to support these two campgrounds, and they've been very heavily used over the last 2.5 years, to the point where we've been able to raise enough revenue to upgrade the sewage system at Falls Reserve and upgrade the electric hydro services there as well. So I'll turn it back to Alvin now to talk about the MOU.
Thank you, Phil. So the MVCA is asking each member municipality to consider entering into an MOU or that will allow the MVCA to continue to provide all the services outlined in our inventory for the next 4 years. MVCA would like to have the MOU in place with all its member municipalities by June 30th of this year. The draft memorandum of understanding is attached to the letter that we sent to you on May the 5th, 2022. Any questions raising from that? Phil or myself will answer.
Councillors, anything for Phil or Alvin?
I'm seeing no hands, Deputy Mayor.
I have one, if I may. Phil, you mentioned drought in your opening, and I know planting trees and going electric are two things we could do individually to help mitigate drought. But is there any other ones that farmers or urban people could do to help besides those two?
Well, we desperately need to increase forest cover or natural cover across the watershed. We're down to about 16 to 18%. So naturalizing parks is good. We cut an awful lot of grass in our municipalities, and there's certainly lots of room to put more trees and forests back on the landscape. Rural stormwater management is another one with these huge rainfall events. The old approach to drainage was get rid of the water as quickly as possible. Now what we're trying to do is slow it down, spread it out so it can soak into the ground. So stormwater management's been a big feature in cities for decades, but it's a relatively new concept in rural Ontario. So we think that has a lot of promise in a watershed like ours, and we do have 2 really good demonstration projects at the Scott Farm and out on the Garvey Glen, where we have, believe it or not, 36 farmers working together on a rural stormwater management system. So yes, there's a whole list of things to do, there's going to be no one thing, but that's a short list anyway.
Thank you very much. And thank you for your presentation. You and Alvin did a good job. You may have to come back again next year and grace us with your presence, I think.
I'm looking forward to it. The last 2.5 years, it's been lonely not getting out there.
Okay, good stuff.
There's a question from Councillor Chartrand, Deputy Mayor.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Chartrand.
Yes, thank you. Phil, good presentation. I'm on the Asabo Conservation Board of Directors, and they're getting ready to do the same presentation. With this new mandate, or I shouldn't say mandate, what funding is not being covered now. Is there a number of services that you used to do for municipalities that you have dropped?
Well, probably the big one is conservation education. Our education center was in poor condition, structurally unsound, and the school board wasn't interested in sort of helping to fix it. And we were subsidizing, children going to the center. So we had to drop out of that one. When you look at the amount of, agricultural land we have in our watershed, we felt that was a higher priority with the limited resources that we have. The province is still providing some money on the project side to do stewardship things. So they haven't completely given up on us. It's just the stable operating funding we used to get. Up until 1995, we would get $1 million a year from the province, and they covered 2/3 of our operating budgets. And they had all kinds of programs. Now on an operating budget of $2 million, we get $56,000 a year from the province. So
Yeah, I hear.
the partnership is badly broken, so we've had to cut back. That's the major service I think we've dropped that I can think of.
I know we're going through all of our lists right now as to what things that we used to cover and what we used to charge each municipality their levies for. And now there's a lot of pushback. If the province doesn't recognize certain things, then why are you charging levies to those municipalities? So we're in the process of now going to all the municipalities and saying, here's the ones that we can't cover no more. Do you still want them covered? And how do we do it together, collaborating together? Always looking for, wacky funds or other different places to go to try to get funds to do that.
Yeah.
So it's been, I'm sure for you too, it's been a very frustrating process for the Asabo Conservation to try to keep the good programs that are in place that municipalities want to have, but the province aren't covering on the more. So hats off to you for trying to maintain what you have there. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Ray, and for the good answer, Phil. Anything else, Councillor?
Councillor Deal had her hand up.
Okay. Diane, or Councillor Deal, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Mr. Beard, a few years back, when I was involved with the school here in Gray, Northwoods now, we had some programs going. Are they still operational, or did that get dropped too with the funding cuts?
Yeah, we don't have a conservation education program anymore, no.
No, okay.
Those staff are gone. We decided to put it into stewardship and extension. The demand from landowners to do things on their property is really going up, and we see that as, I guess, when you have to choose, that is a higher priority. So, and the Ministry of Education is supposed to be responsible for education. And
thank you very much.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Deal, and your good answer, Phil. Thank you.
Don't think I'm seeing any more questions, Deputy Mayor.
All right. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen.
thank you.
I'm sure we'll have that ready for you by June 30th. Phil, Alvin is going to put the heat to us, I know.
It's on our agenda tonight, Councillor or Deputy Mayor.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Phil.
Okay, item 6.2 is the public hearing for minor variance application MV 2022. So we would just need a mover and a seconder to go into the public meeting and adjourn council. I see Councillor Wilby and Councillor Chartrand.
Thank you very much. All in favor? Thank you. And
Very-
we welcome Jen Burns from the Dungeon in Drayton this evening.
Clerk has a few things to read in terms of public disclosure, and then,
Right.
then we'll bring Jen on board.
Okay.
Yep, sorry, I just had to switch my screens around here.
Yep.
So this was just, or sorry, we should also just confirm our public hearing agenda for June 7th. So I would just need a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Steffler and Councillor McMillan.
All in favor? Thank you. Carried.
Great.
Okay, and then there's the disclosures of pecuniary interest on this item as well.
And I'm not thinking there's any, so we'll carry on then, please. Thank you.
Yep, seeing no hands, thank you. So the minor variance application here was received from John and Lena Wall on 84337 Kent Line, legally described as lot 97 to 100 PL 207. The purpose of the application is to seek relief from zoning bylaw 52, 2006 for the municipality of Huron East. The property subject to this variance is zoned residential low density zone R1 on key map 10A of the Huron East zoning bylaw and designated urban in Cranbrook in the Huron East official plan. The purpose of this application is to request relief from the maximum permitted building height for an accessory building on the subject lands, residential low density zone R1. The accessory building will be used for personal storage, including for the storage of an RV. The minor variance would permit an increase in the maximum building height from 5 meters to 6.1 meters. A notice of the Committee of Adjustment public hearing has been circulated to all government agencies and adjoining property owners as provided by the legislation, and no comments have been received. So now we can call on Jen Burns, our Huron County planner, to present her report.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Jen, from your dungeon.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Good evening, everyone. So tonight we have minor variance application MV02 of 2022 for John and Lena Wall. The property location is 84337 Kent Line. Oh, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to share my screen here. I realize I haven't done that. I apologize. 1 second. Are you able to see the subject lands? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Perfect, thank you. So this is the subject property that is subject to the variance. As the clerk mentioned, the property is zoned low density, so our R1 zone on key map 10A of the Huron East zoning bylaw, and it is also designated urban in our Huron East official plan. Here's a photo of the subject property. So this is standing on Kent Line, looking, I guess we would say, northwest at the subject property. It's currently vacant with a residential and like a barn storage on the west side of the property boundary. The applicants are proposing to build a single detached dwelling at the front portion of the property, and then the proposed shed will be going to the rear portion of the property. The applicant also did note that the shed will not be higher in height than the proposed house that they are also planning to build at the same time. So here are some sketches of the proposed building. So from the road, you would likely see the south elevation, and then the west elevation with the double garage doors and the man door would be accessed from the driveway. The north elevation will be to the rear of the proposed building. And then the east elevation will be, so it's a blank shed wall, and that's what will be visible to the neighboring property from a residential, the neighboring residential property. So as mentioned, one minor variance is being requested to increase the maximum height of the accessory building from the required 5 meters to 6.1 meters. Property is zoned residential low density, which does allow for a single detached dwelling and accessory uses. No concerns have been received as of the presentation right now, so haven't heard anything from neighbors or staff, and would also say this application does meet the 4 tests that are required under the Planning Act. So meets the intent of the Huron East official plan, meets the intent of the Huron East zoning bylaw, and would be considered desirable for the appropriate development of the lands in question, and is considered to be minor in nature, all as outlined in my planning report. That concludes my presentation, and I do see the applicant is on the line. Should the committee have any questions that I'm also unable to answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jen. Clerk Rudy, is there any buddy wishing to speak pro or
Right
against?
now, Councillor McLellan has his hand up right now.
No, I mean in the public, from the public, please.
We
Perfect.
don't have anybody requesting at this point in time to speak from the public.
Okay, thank you. Then councillors and Councillor McClellan, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to Jen. Jen, so in a case like this, were they asking to build the garage first? I'm not opposed to this at all by any means. I'm just wondering about the procedure. Was it so that the garage could be built first? Or is that just changing the zoning so when they come to the garage, it could be built higher?
Thank you, and through you, Deputy Mayor. So my understanding is actually they are building these concurrently. So they've pulled a building permit for both the house and the shed to be built at approximately the same time. This application just allows for the shed to be constructed higher than what is currently permitted in the zoning bylaw. So going from that 5 to the 6.1. They could build a shed accessory to the house as of right without an application, but it's just the request for that height is what we're looking at tonight.
Okay, thank you. And my final question is on a lot like this, could somebody put up a house trailer there instead of a house? Like pull in a house trailer and set it up?
Like, do you mean a mobile home?
Yes.
Or what? Yeah, so I'm still getting familiar with your zoning bylaw, but my understanding as of right now is that mobile homes are not permitted within your settlement areas. So this is considered to be a settlement area. And so no, a mobile home would not be permitted. It does need to be a single detached permanent dwelling on the property.
And any different than for an AG4? Property?
Yeah, so I do believe for an AG4, a double wide mobile home is currently permitted as of right as the main dwelling. And a single wide though is not currently permitted as of right on an AG4, but is permitted on an AG1.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions of council? Seeing none, if I may, Jen, this is one of the new lots in Cranbrook. Is that right?
That's correct.
So, and the walls are recent immigrants to Huron East, are they?
I believe so, yeah. So they purchased the property and plan to build their home and shed.
Good, very good. Are they, do they wish to speak this evening? I'm sorry, I forgot to ask them that.
I do believe that John is on the line. I'm not sure, John, if you wanted to speak at this time.
Hey, it's John here.
Welcome to Huron East.
Thank you. Yeah, I have no further comments.
Okay, good. Thank you. Anything else then for our Committee of Adjustment? That's pretty well got it wrapped up, I think.
We will need a motion just to approve the recommendation, and it will have to be a recorded vote just for it to be as part of the requirements.
Have a
So
mover
I,
and seconder, please.
Councillor McClellan and Councillor Morrison.
Thank you. Are you ready, clerk?
Yes, I am. So I will read the motion out. Yay is in favor of the motion as read, and nay is opposed to the motion as read. So that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East, acting as Committee of Adjustment, has held a public meeting pursuant to Section 45 of the Planning Act 1990 with respect to minor variance application MB02-2022. Whereas no comments from the public were received and whereas no agency comments were received. Now, therefore, the Committee of Adjustment approves the minor variance application MB02-2022 by John and Lena Wall for 84337 Kent Line to permit the following variance from Bylaw 52-2006. 1, increase in the maximum building height from 5 meters to 6.1 meters for an accessory building on the subject property. 2, that the variance approved is valid for a period of 18 months from the date of the committee's decision. 3, that the proposed accessory building be constructed as per the sketch submitted with the application. And 4, that the proposed accessory building be constructed in the footprint outlined on the concept sketch provided within the application. So I will just start with Councillor McClellan as he moved the motion. Yay or nay, Councillor McClellan?
Yay.
Mayor is absent. Councillor Dalton?
Yay.
Councillor Deal?
Yay.
Councillor Wilby?
Yay.
Councillor Steffler?
Yay.
Councillor Morrison?
Yay.
Councillor McGrath?
Yay.
Councillor Chartrand?
Yay.
Deputy Mayor Fisher?
Yay.
And Councillor On.
Yay.
Okay, so that was approved unanimously. And then now that brings us to the adjournment of the meeting, Deputy Mayor, for the public hearing.
Have a mover and a seconder, please, to adjourn the meeting.
I see Councillor Wilby and Councillor Deal.
All in favor? Carried, thank you.
Okay, there are no accounts payable. Back at the regular meeting now. The first report is CAO report, CAO 2230, disconnection from work policy.
Okay, are you ready, Brad?
I'm all set. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. As everybody's probably aware, under the province brought in legislation under the Bill 27 that required all employers with more than 25 employees to bring in a workplace disconnect policy. So we're bringing this in compliance with the legislation. The policy we've drafted, quite frankly, I've tried to make the policy as simplistic as possible, but in compliance, but also trying to follow kind of what we already kind of practice in terms of our operational, so that it's not a significant divergent from what we do. So in terms of the policy itself, staff, certain staff, those that are on call, some of the department heads do monitor their emails, voicemail, so on, so forth, after hours as part of sort of the core duties of their responsibilities. The one piece, I guess, that's new, probably, that's important probably for counselors, is that the expectation in terms of a response based upon anything that's provided through those means is that it'll be provided the next business day, unless for whatever reason it's classified as urgent. So it needs to have the subject matter urgent designated in there, so that that staff person knows that there's a requirement for a more immediate response versus the following business day. That's probably it in a nutshell. So if there's any questions of council, I'd be happy to answer them.
Councillors? You must have
I
done it
think
real
I'm
well,
safe.
Mr. McRoberts. I have a quick one, if I may.
You may. Thank you.
Did I hear in that when I was listening to it a couple of times that we as councillors are on call all the time? Is that the gist of what I heard?
Yeah, that was a piece I struggled a little bit. Yeah, good. I thank you for bringing that up, Deputy Mayor. So I struggled that with a little bit that, depending upon your role as a counselor, there's probably some responsibility. You don't really have set office hours per se. So you are employees though, and certainly covered under the legislation, but you are excluded from that legislation primarily due to your role.
So we can kind of set our own parameters, I hope.
Yeah, I guess the same gist would apply, is that if say you're getting information from a resident or any other counselor or any other party, you have to use that same judgment in terms of whether there's a response required immediately or not. Certainly, if it's got that notification urgent on it, then there might be some requirement for you as well as any department head to respond in a timely fashion, depending upon the circumstances. What the case might be.
Okay, thank you.
I think Councilor McCollum has a question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. And my concern was, but I think you addressed that, was obviously, getting that phone call from a resident that there's a tree down across some road somewhere, and being able to reach somebody to sort of address it one way or another. But I think you touched on that in your preamble there. So that was good enough. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Now you need a motion?
Sorry, yes, we do. There is a motion that reads that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East approve the disconnect from work policy.
And mover and a seconder, please.
I see Councillor Chartrand and Councillor Dalton.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Okay, the next item is CAO report, CAO 2231, Drainage Superintendent.
Okay, Mr. McRoberts, please.
Yeah, so I had spoke to council one time in regards to a drainage superintendent. And this was an item I think that was brought up first to me by our manager of public works in terms of an opportunity to realize some savings. We currently use the services of RJ Burnside to provide our drainage superintendent role through a consulting service. There's an opportunity here. I had noticed that Huron Kinloss municipality had an advertisement out for a drainage superintendent, and in reaching out to my counterpart there, they had been struggling trying to place that position. So it presented an opportunity for itself to explore the concept of a shared service agreement with them, with the ultimate guise of providing them the service that they've been looking for and struggling to fulfill, but also providing an opportunity for us to save a few dollars. It's not significant, but certainly it's a savings in terms of it. And I think that we'll get a higher level of quality of service with someone who's dedicated to the two municipalities in terms of that shared service. The shared service agreement speaks to the fact that Huron Kinloss, the municipality or the township of Huron Kinloss, is going to use about 750 hours per year. And then we're probably about the same equivalent in terms of 750 hours as well. We currently use the excess that would be available during the year would be used for following up on some of our drainage reports, following up on some of their drainage files, cleaning them up, getting them sorted out, potentially scanning the files into our electronic document management system. This is a subject of a report later on tonight. So there's lots of work there for us to be able to do. And then there's always a potential to be able to get a smaller municipality that we might be able to get into a shared service agreement with that role as well. In the end, I think we're getting a better quality of service at a lesser cost. I'd be happy to answer any questions of council.
Thank you, Mr. McRoberts. Any questions on this Councillors?
Councillor Stefler and Councillor McClellan have questions.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Stefler, please.
Thank you. Where would the drainage superintendent work out of, Brad?
He would probably work out of one of the public workshops that we have. There's some space in there, and speaking with Mr. Mills, that would probably be the best location for him to work when he's physically working in an office. I suspect the majority of his time will be out and about between working with Huron Kinloss and ourselves, and likely working some type of arrangement similar to what we do with our fire chief with North Huron, in terms of how we have that arrangement set up in terms of the timeshare situation. Couple days doing work up in Huron Kinloss, and then the other 3 days working in Huron East.
And then what about a vehicle, Brad?
Under the grant program, expenses are eligible up to a certain percentage of the employee's salary. So we would probably, what we intend to do to make that cost grantable, I guess is the word I want to use. We're going to lease a truck for that individual that will be expendable through the grant program.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you for that question, Councillor Stefler. Councillor McClellan?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, through you to Brad. Brad, so we haven't hired anybody yet per se. Like, are we still looking at hiring someone, or are we just going to continue using Burnside?
We are looking at hiring an employee,
Okay.
subject to this shared service agreement going through, being approved by council. Huron Kinloss's council approved it last night in terms of proceeding forward.
Okay. And a follow-up question. A meeting or two ago, we were talking about some of the issues that we had with this program. Were you going to develop a policy on some of the concerns that we had, or how were you going to handle that? Like a written policy, or?
I wouldn't go so far as to say that it would be a policy, but more of a standard operating procedure. And I think what I spoke to when the motion was brought forward was creating a tracking system that tracks all the drain work, both not necessarily drain work that the drainage superintendent would be managing, but also the drainage projects that are ongoing from a drainage engineer perspective, so that we can keep track of them, keep track when the costs are being allocated, keep track when the work needs to be progressed, when tenders are going to go out, what stage they're at, and then be able to keep myself, the clerk, the deputy treasurer, and the public works manager as well, all up to date. And we can all view that tracking sheet on a regular basis to keep track of those projects.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay.
Councillor Chartrand has his
Question
hand
from
up.
Councillor Chartrand, please.
Yes, thank you, Brad. Also, too, you covered a lot of stuff there, but one of the most important things is to keep the residents updated, the farmers updated of what's happening as well, because that was one of the major complaints, that they never got the feedback back as to where their project was or when. So we can't forget about them in that process as well.
Agree 100%. And I think that was the purpose why we thought that the tracking format that can be kind of shared between all the people is so that if those farmers end up reaching out to anybody in particular and not getting an answer, there's one place where everybody can look and see what the status is of it and provide an answer to that individual.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question. Are we good?
We do have a motion to go with this report as well.
Please.
It reads that the council of the municipality of Huron East consider a bylaw for a shared service agreement with the municipality of Huron Kinloss for the services of a drainage superintendent.
Good. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please?
Councillor Stefler and Councillor Morrison.
Thank you. All those in favor? I think this one should be carried too. Thank you.
Yes, it is.
Thank you, Jessica.
Next is the CAA report, BMGCC renovation tender results updated.
Okay.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
All ears, Mr. McRoberts.
Yes, so last meeting, I actually had a report on the agenda and I asked council to defer it to give myself, our architect, and sort of the project team an opportunity to work with Elgin Contracting and Restoration to identify some additional cost savings. And I'm pleased that we've been very successful in being able to identify some significant cost savings of the project. Enough, I believe, that brings it into that framework of the shortfall that's acceptable probably for council, and probably that small remaining amount fairly achievable, and quite frankly, I believe it will be achieved by the fundraising committee. So there was actually a net reduction. If council recalls, we were probably about $1.6 million kind of shy in terms of a cost overrun on the budget. We've identified about almost $1.2 million worth of savings based upon the following items. And I'll just go through them just for council's sake, just to make sure, and for the public that might be listening to this. At the time that the Elgin Contracting placed their bid, they weren't able to receive a masonry bid or a sub-trade bid. So they actually subsequently were able to get a price, and there was fairly significant savings based upon that price. So that's probably where the majority of the cost savings are coming from. They've also identified it, and the truth about all these things is there's nothing really fundamentally about these cost savings that are having any detrimental impact to the quality or the usability of the building. It also included the use of existing natural gas for temporary heating, and that's not an unusual case when we get into temporary heating for construction, is that the client pays for that heat. Deleting the cost of bonding, so there wasn't any required for bonding in the contract, but the contractor had included that at the time. He'd also included builder's risk insurance, which also was not called for. Things like hydro seeding instead of sod being placed provided some savings. The parking lot to, I guess what I would call to the east of the building, which is where most of the work would be happening, where the addition would happen, rather than actually going through and paving that whole area, there's an opportunity there to do a little bit of asphalt patching at this point in time in lieu of replacing that, provided some savings. We looked at getting rid of ceramic tile and adding sort of a concrete polished finish as opposed to tile. And we did check to make sure that at some point in time in the future, or if in fact we get additional dollars to the fundraising, we could put that tile back in if that's something that was so desired. But at least at this point, that brings that cost down and it's easy to add it in. We didn't need, there was no requirement for waterproof, foundation waterproofing. They reduced some sloped insulation costs. They looked at the TPO roofing, mechanically fastened roof in lieu of a PVC membrane. So it's kind of going back to what we originally split before. An opportunity to find some savings appears to be the cheaper alternative as what we originally intended. Changing right now, the mechanical designers had proposed an ordinary hazard for the building, which created a lot more stringent requirements, which is an ordinary hazard is typical for industrial or agricultural type facilities, not required for this type of facility. So we're able to reduce that to a light hazard. That's been concurred with the sprinkler contractor, which is his purview in terms of whether or not what's acceptable. I've also consulted with our chief building official, and our architect also consulted with some of the mechanical contractors to make sure that they understood and had no disagreement. And also changing the rink piping from a galvanized to a black, which has also been deemed acceptable. Removing a wet system for new addition, only providing valve room, fire department connection, dry valve, air compressor, and dry system for the existing rink and bleacher area only. So that provided some savings. And then we changed a new price for the millwork contractor, changing to a different contractor who had a better price. So all in all, that added up to about $1.2 million worth of savings, bringing the total project cost into that sort of $400,000 range. If council recall, at the last meeting, we had the fundraising committee updated and said that they have achieved that target of 1.53 million in their fundraising campaign, and since that time they've gotten an additional 100,000. So that leaves us with a net shortfall of about 225,000, and there's still an extensive amount of fundraising campaign work to be completed. That's probably my report in the summary. So I am recommending that we award the contract to Elgin Contracting and Restoration Limited for a reduced amount of $7,263,000 plus applicable HSD. Any questions?
I'm
to
sure
Deputy
there's
Mayor?
many. Who would like to start?
I'm not seeing any questions at this point. Oh,
I
I
see,
got Councillor
sorry.
Leo.
Councillor Deal.
Yes, just for my own information also, what is the wet system as opposed to a not wet system?
That's sort of it's kind of like your dry hydrant system, so that when the fire department comes up and they hook their hoses up, it's dry as opposed to holding water. So then they can just basically push the water through the system as opposed to having a system that's got water in it and it has to be held. It's the weight component of it that puts a bit of a challenge on it in terms of having all that weight carried for the duration of the time it's sitting in there.
Thank you.
I believe Councillor Chartrand has a question, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Chartrand, please.
Yes, to you, Brad. So all this fundraising money that they said they've collected, is this money at this point in time only pledges, or they've actually collected the money?
It's a combination of both. So there are pledges as well as over different time periods depending upon the individual. So it's up to a 5-year time period for pledges, but some of it's also based upon, donations that they've received to date. I would say probably the majority of that number is a pledge versus a physical dollars in hand.
And how confident are you that those pledges will actually follow through?
That's a tough question for me to answer. I mean, the reality is that, depending upon the individual who makes the pledges, I'm pretty confident that most of them will meet their targets. But there's always never any guarantee in those circumstances.
Because I guess my only concern is it's one thing to say you're going to do it, but are you going to actually do it? And I guess hopefully they just follow through what they said. So
some of those that are putting in the large donations, I'll offer this. They're asking for naming rights for particular aspects of the building. And then based upon those naming rights, I'm sure if they don't fulfill their pledged obligation, then they would lose their naming right.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chartrand, Councillor Chartrand. Anybody else, please?
Councillor McClellan has a question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. And I think some of them pledges will firm up pretty quickly if this motion passes tonight as well. I think at this point here, I think they're like everybody else, they're just sitting waiting.
Oh, yeah.
So I think if this motion passes tonight, I think it'll be a different game tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification, Councillor McClellan. Anyone else, please?
I think Councillor Stuffer has a question, I believe,
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Councillor Steffler, please.
Yes, I think we should get going on this project. 4 years ago, we could have built a place for half the money. So we better get going on it now.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Anyone else?
Not seeing any, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, I have a couple, Mr. McRoberts, if I may.
Yes, please.
7.2 million.
7.263.
Okay, and that includes the roof.
It does include the roof, yes.
Does include the roof. Good. I have the second one is similar to Mr. Councillor Chartrand's, these pledges. If let's say it's half and half, who is so the residents of Huron East will have to come up with the $1 million or carry the $1 million until all the pledges come in. Is that going to be the format?
Yeah, we would be, to answer your question, I guess it'd be part of our debenture cost to float some of that for a short duration. So we would cash flow it, I guess, essentially. We wouldn't debenture it for the entire period we probably, and this is probably a better question for a finance person, but I would suspect probably any of the 5-year commitments would be funded through some type of short-term financing. The larger capital portion, or our debenture portion that we spoke about previously, would be funded through, I believe we talked about a 20-year debenture program. So, you know, kind of a combination of the two of them, correct?
When you just said the roof was covered in this, I didn't think we would be having a debenture for this now.
Well, the funding program for the municipality's contribution was always based upon putting a debenture out to fund some of that. We can't cash flow that kind of dollar. So we were always talking about debenturing it. And that's where we brought in that.
I remember Morris Turnberry debenturing, but I don't remember any debenturing on our part except for the roof. That's why I asked. So could
No,
you
so
clarify that, please?
Yep, certainly. So the purpose why we brought in that 2% capital levy was to cover the cost of the debenture. So we estimated that our debenture cost on an annual basis, including interest and principal, was in that $80,000 range. And that's how we were going to fund our additional contribution to the project. And so that's how, and then Morris Turnberry was just going to tack into our debenture as part of that. That's how their contribution was going to be added to the project. They'll pay their share of the interest and principal in accordance with that, but on a shorter duration. I think they were looking at 5 years, if I
5
remember
years,
correctly.
yeah, for 400,000 some and change, yeah.
Yep.
Then I'm sorry, I don't remember the number. What are we looking at as a debenture then?
Well, I don't have that in front of me actually at this point. I believe the municipality's contribution was somewhere in the neighborhood of combined was about $1.8 million, with probably about $1.5 million was our contribution. We had originally funded, I think, in that $800,000 range was part of the original contribution before we increased the budget. So I believe that our intention was to debenture the full, let's say our portion's 1.5, we were going to debenture that full 1.5 million over 20 years.
Okay. Any other questions?
Councillor Chartrand has a question.
Yes, thank you. A couple. We started putting money in reserves for this after we sold the school in Brussels and some other. We must have.
I thought we had over 500.
We had over 500,000 in there. I'm sure. I thought it was more than that. That we had already put in reserves for the Brussels arena. Do you have that number in front of you, Brad? What we have in reserves?
I don't have my budget sheets in front of me. Sorry, Councillor Chartrand, but if that's the case, then whatever the difference is in terms of our contribution, that's the amount we would debenture.
Yeah, because I remember when we sold the school, there was money put back in there because we knew this was going to be coming up in the future. So, and my last question is Morris Turnberry on board with this? Has their council voted on it?
So they're on board in terms of their cost contribution. It's up to Huron East to award the contract, and the shortfall is being made up by, not by Huron East, but by the fundraising committee. That's the intent.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Everyone's comfortable? Just one quick question, if I may, Mr. McRoberts. I'm still this company Elgin Construction. They've been vetted by our engineers and architect.
Yep, I believe our architect is familiar with them and familiar with their work, and I'm familiar with their work as well in terms of they've been a company that's been around for a while, and I've seen their name previously.
No concerns that we only had one. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm not concerned with that. No.
Okay, are we at the voting stage, councillors?
There's a motion I think that the clerk might read if
Yes,
we're at
please.
that stage.
Yes, we do have a motion that the council of the municipality of Huron East accept the tender submission from Elgin Contracting and Restoration Limited in the reduced amount of $7,263,000 plus HST.
And a mover and a seconder, please.
I see Councillor Steffler and Councillor On.
Thank you, councillors. Someone want to do the counting? Keep your hands up, put your hands up. All in favor, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Everybody has their hand up.
Good. Okay, thank you very much, councillors. Here we are. Pretty
Okay.
easy to spend 7 million, eh? Next,
Next item is the Planning and Works report on the Brussels subdivision, Bryan Street and Anderson Drive, project number 319009 GM Blue Plan.
Mr. Mills is in his lazy boy and ready to chat.
I am here. There we are. Good evening. Basically, the report is for the Brussels subdivision lots on Bryan and Anderson Drive. We received through GM Blue Plan tenders for construction, for servicing, and of installing water mains, storms, sanitary sewer, asphalt, and streetlights. Just want to clarify for the report, though, streetlights were not part of the actual tender, but will be actually part of the subdivision as we, how would you say, move along with it. In the report, it says 2 tenders were received for the contract on May 26th, again through bids and tenders, which is a electronic submission. We did receive 2 submissions, one from Curtis Smith Excavating, which is from Brussels area. And we have used Mr. Smith's services on several occasions in the past successfully. Lavis Construction has also put a bid in there, and the 2 prices seem to separate about $700,000. The tender from Curtis Smith met the specifications. GM Blue Plan reviewed the tender documents and do recommend the award be given to Curtis Smith. Another note within the report is that the surface works, which would be the including of the top coat of asphalt sidewalks, are not included. And once the development maybe gets built up to about 75%, then we'll be looking at maybe going ahead with that. Hopefully it goes swiftly. As I know down my street, it goes fairly quickly, but you don't want to be putting the final coat sidewalks down only for concrete trucks to back over and cause problems. And if you have any sagging within the road base, that can all be corrected before the final coat goes down. So the financial impacts are laid out there. We are over the engineer's estimate by about $200,000 in the financials. But I am still recommending that we proceed with the project based on the amount of lots. I still think the marketplace is soft. It is still good, but it's soft a little bit. But I think I recommend the report as presented.
Any questions for Mr. Mills, councillors?
Councillor McClellan has his hand raised.
Thank you. Councillor McClellan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Through you to Barry. Barry, me being somebody that doesn't build roads and stuff, does the hydro that services these new residents, is that laid in the ground, or does that come in overhead?
Within the subdivision itself, it'll be in the ground.
Okay. So is that part of this tender?
No, that was not part of this tender.
Okay, but
that's what I wanted to clear when I went through the preamble there. I wanted to make sure it was understood that that would be something that it's still in the design stage, actually. Just to comment a bit further is that there's lead times for everything because of the supply chain. And right now we're dealing with Festival Hydro and getting transformers secured.
Okay, well, I thought you mentioned something about streetlights and I wasn't sure if that was part and parcel, but then I guess, so my follow-up question is, so when the services go in, let's say if every house in this new subdivision wanted an electric car, is there enough power there to power that?
I'm gonna say yes.
Okay.
Now the building code, just to elaborate a little bit, the building code at one point in time did require that there was an outlet applied in the garage to service electric vehicles. I see Ray nodding his head because he's gone through this process recently and probably has a better understanding of what the building code asks for. But I still believe that there is a conduit that is maintained for electrical vehicles in the code still. But it's not applied, it's just a conduit type of thing.
So there is power there for everybody to charge their cars if they need to and have the lights on in their house at the same time.
I'm gonna say yes.
Thank you, Barry.
Thank you, Mr. McClellan. Councilor McClellan. Anybody else for Mr. Mills, please?
I am seeing nobody, Deputy Mayor.
Clarification, please, Barry. The top coat and the sidewalks will be over and above this 2.2 million?
That is correct.
So what are we looking at there, 200 or 300?
Oh, I think it was about 90.
Just ballpark, please.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be over 90,000. It's gonna be about 100.5 by the time we get her all done.
Okay, and is there a time frame for Mr. Smith?
Yeah, I do believe it was November. We extended his deadline to get all the servicing in. He also has Princess Street within Brussels, so he's got our both projects this year.
Yeah, that's what we were hoping. He could just turn around and go south there.
Yeah.
Or whatever, as that is the finish by the end of November, not start.
I would hope so. Yes.
Okay, I'm just making sure. That's a lot of work. Okay,
Asphalt plant closes in the end of November, so.
okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Mills. Anyone else? Okay, we need a motion, Clerk Rudy.
Yes, we do. The motion reads that
Thank
the
you.
Council of the Municipality of Huron East accept the tender Curtis Smith Excavating Inc. in the amount of $2,456,620, including all provisional items, $90,000 in contingency and 13% HST for the construction and servicing of Bryan Street and Anderson Drive in Brussels.
Thank you. Can we have a mover and a seconder, please?
I am seeing Councillor On and Councillor Morrison.
Good. Thank you. All in favor? I think this one should carry quite easily. Thank you.
Yes, that was all carried.
And next,
It is the clerk report on a request for proposal for the electronic document and records management system. So I guess I'll just continue on here. So this
thank
was
you.
previously mentioned briefly by the CAO. So we did put in an RFP for an electronic document management program, and this is covered under our municipal modernization funding intake 3 that was applied for. We did receive 4 submissions, with the one that we are recommending, Image Advantage. So they have over 39 municipalities, I believe is where they're at right now, where they supply their file hold application. The file hold will be able to hold our electronic records and be able to scan in our physical records as well. This is going to improve staff time on searching capabilities, and important note for me, if by my records management hat on, is just that it will also be compatible with the Tom RIMS classification system that we passed. I think that was just a couple months ago. So every record will be classified that way, making it come up to speed with the MFIPA legislation as well, and finding our records and maintaining them in the proper orders. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys might have on that RFP.
Thank you. Who's first?
I'm not seeing anybody at this point in time.
Is that because none of us understand, or are we? Because I sure don't. I will ask then. So we approve this, and then is there a annual fee for this?
There is an annual fee, as noted in the report. So let me just go there.
Is that
5,175. Yes, 5,175.
And-
That's including all support for the software. So this is an in-house. It will be on our in-house. It's called on-premise on our servers. So this isn't going to be cloud-based. It's going to be in-house, and they'll also provide support for this, any annual updates or upgrades to the program as it comes around. Glitches and bugs will also be patched by them as well. So they are still responsible for any of the software upgrades and things that might happen with it.
And how many decades is this good for?
I'm gonna say lots.
Right.
It's gonna be constantly maintained and upgraded with as our
Yeah.
technology produces, goes forward as well. It's gonna be in a lot better standing as where we are right now to provide better naming conventions and standard operating on files and records, saving, printing, things like that across the organization. So it's gonna make it a lot simpler for all staff.
And this will consequently make it easier for constituents as well?
It will make it easier in the fact that when they contact us looking for something, it won't take a long time searching for information.
Okay, thank you very much. Did that cause any questions from my fellow councilors?
Councillor Chartrand.
Thank you. Councillor Chartrand, please.
Thank you. Jessica, how is this system backed up?
It will be backed up on our server. So right now it will go through with anything else that's on our server, all other programs. So we do have a disk that gets backed up physically and taken to the fire hall on a daily basis, but we were looking into conversations with Continuit IT on doing a cloud backup as well of all of our applications and stuff on our server.
Yeah,
Right now,
sometimes
we'll be
they'll also
hosting
use
everything.
external hard drives, like a separate external hard drives for
And
backups
that's
as well.
basically what we have right now, which is an external hard drive that gets brought to the fire hall, and we have several disks, I guess you could call them, that get changed over on a frequent basis. The downfall with the hard drive backups is if something were to happen in our building, it would take a lot longer for us to get started up and running again. Whereas
So-
if a cloud backup that we operated or was hosted by us on the cloud, there would be a lot faster turnaround. It's a disaster recovery type of situation.
So the company itself doesn't back it up for
I
us.
believe they might
offsite.
have some backup offsite. I'd have to look through the RFP. That was one of my questions in it. So I do believe they do some backups themselves as well. Yes, but the main application, the application itself will be hosted on our server, but they do patches and things like that.
Because the benefit of having a full offsite backup is that if you're having a problem internally, they would have the full backup externally, right?
And that's
So-
similar to the cloud backup. Hosting on our server, it's still our responsibility for things like that.
Yeah,
I think there was an option for them to host it and host it all on their cloud. That wasn't included in the price because I prefer a on-premise situation and more of the security aspect of it.
okay, great.
Sure.
It's always great to discuss backups and security, right? Because you never know.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're currently right now exploring some opportunities to provide a cloud-based backup system for more from a recovery standpoint perspective.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Councillor Chartrand, and the answer. Any other questions? Okay, do you have a motion for us, Clerk Rudy, please?
I do, and the motion is just that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East award the electronic document and records management system request for proposal to Image Advantage.
Mover and a seconder, please.
I see Councillor Chartrand and Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, gentlemen. All in favor? I would imagine this would carry quite easily. Thank you.
Yes, that is carried. Thanks. Okay, I'm still up. So the next report is citizen appointment to the Huron East Seaforth Community Development Trust. This was a result of a vacancy which was submitted to us from, I believe it was Ellen Whalen submitted her vacancy. So her term ran until 2026. So we did advertise in local newspapers and our website for approximately the month of May. I believe I posted at the beginning of May and it ran until May 27th. And we did just receive the one application from Ann Bettles. So the recommendation is just that we appoint Ann Bettles to the Seaforth Community Trust for a term ending in 2026. And that is the term that was left vacant.
Okay,
This also was vetted and gone through Christy Little, who is the chair of the Seaforth Trust as well.
thank you. A very lengthy application. All sounded all good listening to it. Any questions at all on this, councillors? If not, could I have a mover and a seconder, please?
I see Councillor Wilby and Councillor On.
Thank you, ladies. All in favor? This is another easy one. I think it's carried as well. Thank
Yes,
you.
it is. Thank you.
Are you done yet?
No, well, I've done my reports. There is just now the motion to receive the reports from the municipal officers as presented. So that's reports from the CAO, Public Works Manager, and the clerk.
Okay, do we have a mover and a seconder and then questions?
Yeah, I see Councillor Steffler and Councillor Deal.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions on any of these?
Seeing none.
Seeing none, all in favor? Another easy one. I think we're carried again. Thank you.
Okay, we're down now to correspondence. So the first item is the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority Draft Memorandum of Understanding for Services and Programs. So this was in relation to the delegation that we had earlier this evening. There is a recommendation that Huron East consider a bylaw to authorize the Memorandum of Understanding with Maitland Valley Conservation Authority for Services and Programs.
Okay, and that'll come later then. Again, thank you. Any other correspondence?
There's a motion on the table, though.
For,
Just accepting that
the-
we consider that bylaw.
we have to, okay. May I have
Yeah.
a mover and a seconder, please?
I see Councillor McClellan and Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, gentlemen. All in favor? Another simple one, carried. Thank you.
Okay, next correspondence is the sorry, my words are getting jumbled now. The Ethel Minor Ball Committee is just requesting a significant event for July 22nd and July 23rd for a fastball tournament, and the proceeds would be going towards the Ethel Minor Ball Hawk program and park maintenance. And so there would be a motion to accept that and declare those dates as a significant event as well.
So a worthy, very worthy event. So mover and a seconder, please.
I see Councillor Wilby and Councillor Deal.
Thank you, ladies. And I think we're all in favor of this one. It's a good one. Thank you. Carried.
And similar, the next one is again a significant event for the Brussels Tiger Fastball Club. Same date range, so it's the July 22nd, July 23rd, and July 24th. Their proceeds would be going towards the minor ball teams in terms of donations and equipment. And again, it's just a recommendation to declare those dates as a significant event.
Yes, another worthy event. Mover, seconder, please.
Councillor Dalton and Councillor On.
Thank you, ladies. This is a pretty simple one. I think we're all in favor, aren't we? We'll say it's carried. Thank you.
Yes, it is. Okay, and the last piece of correspondence is the town of Blue Mountains. They're looking for support for the motion regarding voters list information to candidates. So this could be a decision up to council, whether you want to note and file or you want to send a letter of support. In terms of where we're at, we don't really deal with this situation a lot. So a lot of this is because of cottage areas where the owners are secondary or residences and they don't actually live in the houses. So if you're a candidate and you're looking to canvass and you're not getting in contact, they're looking for their primary addresses. We do use Voter View where the candidates can have access to the voters list, but I don't believe that has the mailing address. However, we don't run into this situation very often in our area.
Comments?
More of a, sorry.
Go ahead.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, certainly in terms of Blue Mountain, some of those cottage regions where, you know, more than probably or almost 50% of their property ownership is through, you know, secondary homes where the primary owner lives in another municipality elsewhere. Probably a concern, but not necessarily a concern directly for a municipality like Huron East.
So I'm getting the impression you're looking for a note and file?
Yep.
I'll make that motion.
Any thoughts from councilors?
I'll make the motion and note and file.
Seconder, please.
Councilor McClellan.
Thank you. All in favor? Is there enough hands?
Yep, there was nothing.
Yes, that is carried.
Thank you, carried.
We do not have anything listed under unfinished business. We do have municipal drains, so we do have a request for a drain improvement for the Glanville Municipal Drain. It's been requested by the applicant that Dietrich Engineering Limited are appointed as the engineer for this drain.
Okay. Any questions?
I'm seeing no hands.
No hands. Do we have a mover and a seconder, please?
Councillor Wilby and Councillor McClellan.
Thank you. And pretty straightforward. All in favor, I would think, and we're carried, I would hope.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Planning, we do not have any items. We're down to council reports and county council report.
Okay. Anything from my fellow councilors? Must be some good news out there with summer here and the rain, et cetera, et cetera.
Councillor Chartrand and then Councillor On.
Thank you.
And any update, Deputy Mayor, on charging stations?
I'm going to cover that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor On, please.
Yeah, sorry, this is, I hope this is the right spot. I just wanted to mention everyone about the murder mystery dinner going on in Brussels for the Brussels Leo Club. I'll be honest with you, we're having a hard time selling tickets, and I would appreciate all your support if you're thinking about going. It's a new thing and it should be lots of fun. So,
When is the event, please?
on the 18th of this month, so Saturday. You can find all the information online on the Brussels Leo Club website. It's $50 for dinner and a show, wine on the table, door prizes, 50-50, all of the above.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Welcome.
That's a busy, very, very busy Saturday. We're feeding 900 in Seaforth here, so. And then there's other events as well.
We're hosting the total zone golf that day with about 70 golfers at Seaford Legion.
Anyway, that's a good cause. Hopefully things pick up. There's a lot of last minute stuff in Huron County, so hopefully that flows very well for the Leos. Thank you, Councillor On. Anything else? Okay, County Council, as Councillor Chartrand alluded to, the charging stations. They are down to the last bit of discussion about hopefully the last bit of who's paying for what and when it's going to start. So hopefully we'll see something very soon. Have you heard anything from them, Mr. Mills?
I do believe that they're hosting a webinar on it in the near future. The exact date on it, I'm not sure. I think it's almost like next week.
That's what I thought, but there had to be some financial things figured out. Okay.
I haven't heard anything further in terms of the financials from the county in terms of that piece of it at this point.
Yeah, yeah, that's the last. Hope so. Very soon, hopefully, Councillor Chartrand.
You had mentioned, or somebody had mentioned a couple of meetings ago, that they were going to contact Barry and walk through the project.
That's what I was informed of. They were going to check out the sites.
And that hasn't happened.
I don't know. Has it, Mr. Mills?
Yes, they have checked out the sites. They've checked out the Brussels site, and we're working with Festival Hydro on the parking lot, installing conduit, not yet, but removing, upgrading the parking lot as per our budget. And through that phase, we'll be installing the dog water, or the water fountain at the park, installing conduit for future EV station, and hopefully we can get a light post in the back corner again. So that's kind of all work in progress.
So were they okay with the infrastructure that we've done behind Town Hall in preparation?
That one, yes.
Okay, thank you. And the other one I had was Cody Deal's request for the 10 acres was defeated, 8-7. on 2 weeks ago Wednesday, 2 weeks ago tomorrow. And then just usual stuff, roads and homes, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Any questions or anything else from councilors? Thank you. We have next.
Next is any other boards or committees or meetings or seminar updates.
Yeah.
And
Anything?
I'm
No?
Nope, seeing no hands.
Okay.
Next was the bylaw to regulate ATVs in Huron and East. This was in response to the request by members from the May 17th meeting. This is just an information item. I think there was just some questions on what the bylaw was detailed and what the regulations were. So the actual bylaw was just attached to the agenda for information.
Okay. Any questions for Mr.
Maybe a
McGraw?
follow-up.
Please?
Yeah, just a follow-up in terms of the bylaw. So the bylaw needs some minor updating, only just to reflect the fact that right now it speaks to what's classified as an all-terrain vehicle or an ATV. It doesn't speak to what I would call like a UTV or a utility type vehicle, or side-by-side, some people call them. And it doesn't speak to multi-wheeled vehicles like a Gator, like a John Deere Gator, and their ability to be used on the roads right now. And the Highway Traffic Act speaks to those specifically. Probably at the time, 2010, the side-by-sides or the UTVs weren't really all that prominent. So we might want to do a little bit of a minor amendment to this bylaw just to kind of bring it up and be inclusive of those vehicles as well. They're similar, just kind of the same context, if that's what council wants to do. The other piece too is I think there was a question at one point raised about golf carts as part of this conversation at the last meeting, and I did do a little bit of research. So, and it piqued my interest because I heard about it from Huron-Kinloss's standpoint in my conversations with them. So there's actually a piece of legislation out there. It's called OREG 4721. It's called Pilot Project Golf Cars. It's a 10-year pilot project in Huron-Kinloss and what is it? The municipality Huron-Kinloss and the township of Pelee. Right in the legislation are designated as being these 10-year pilot projects to look at the ability to be able to have golf carts or golf cars used on municipal roads. So that's kind of where that's at right now, to give them an update in terms of, so right now golf carts being on municipal roads is not legal or on highway roads under the Highway Traffic Act. Happy to answer any other questions with respect to the information that was provided to council.
Any questions, councilors? I have one, if I may, Mr. McRoberts. Should we be looking at something, if we're going to update our bylaw, is there any concerns about electric bikes and electric scooters?
I think they're already permitted. They're licensed and permitted under the Highway Traffic Act, and
Where?
there's no restriction.
Where
I
can they
believe
go?
they're permitted. I believe they're permitted on any highway.
Seriously?
Quite frankly, I know. Yeah, the actual legislation for ATVs is very specific that the municipality must pass a bylaw to permit them on their roads. But I'll have to look in that one to be sure. But I'm 100% sure that like e-bikes and e-bikes are basically permitted on the highways.
And these electric scooters?
Yep.
They can't attain a very high speed.
No, and that's the only piece I think I probably want to do a little bit of checking in to see whether there's some restriction on what speed of highway they can travel upon.
Okay, if you would, please.
Yeah, I don't mind.
Okay, thank
I'll
you.
bring that for an update to the next meeting.
Any other questions, councilors? Thank you. We need a motion. No, that's just for information, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, we definitely-
Council
I have a-
Morrison had a question.
Yeah, I had a question.
Thank you.
So in terms of that amendment that the CEO had mentioned, is that something that our current bylaw review that the clerk is doing? Is that something that might be included in that?
I can speak to that. Mr. CAO. It is on my list of bylaws, and actually it's one that I have circulating right now with some staff. So it's a higher priority one on the list. So it should be one of the first ones to come forward.
Yeah, follow-up question to that, if I might. Is there a timeline for the total bylaw review? I noticed on the Huron East Ash residents, like it's on there, but the list of bylaws, but is there like a end of this year, start of next year, end of summer?
I
Hoping,
think I'll speak.
Yeah.
Sorry, maybe I'll speak that a little bit because it was one of the things that Councilor Morrison that I identified in terms of when I came aboard and kind of did my review and my observations and in consultations with some of the staff, particularly our enforcement officer, that some of our bylaws need to be updated. Do I have a specific timeline as to when they're all going to come forward? That's a tough one to say. I think we've got an election going on, and so it is tasked with Jessica, and I think her commitments are pretty tight right now until at least the election's over. Some of them she can move forward that are simpler. Some of them, like the property standards bylaw, things like that, those will take a lot more time. I think our priority right now probably would be the animal control bylaw. You know, the ATV one's fairly straightforward and simple. Our noise bylaw is the other one that we don't have a Huron East wide noise bylaw. We only have one for Seaforth. Those are the ones I think we're trying to move forward. They're, I guess, what I'll call simpler, a little bit more straightforward. The property standards are a little bit more complex and needs a deeper delve and a deeper review.
Thanks.
Is that okay, Councilor Morrison?
Yes, that answers all my questions. Thank you.
Thanks for the question and the response. Anything else, councillors? Okay.
Next is item 3.3, notice of motion. So this is the motion from Councillor On regarding the Huron East Fire District reporting. It's already been moved by Councillor On. She may want to speak to it, but the motion does read that the Huron East Fire Services Fire Chief, District Chiefs, and Huron East Deputy Chiefs in Brussels, Seaforth, and Gray meet on a biannual basis and document relevant information in the Fire Chief's quarterly reports to the respective councils.
Okay, could we have a seconder for the motion, please, and then comments, please?
Councillor Chartrand.
Seconded by Councillor Chartrand. Thank you. Any comments, Councillor On or other councillors?
Don't see any, Deputy Mayor.
Okay. I think this one's pretty straightforward too. All in favor? And we're carried, I think. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Next is any announcements from council? I'm seeing no hand raised for that one.
Okay, thank you.
And then we're on to item 14, which is our information items. We do have the first information item. Well, actually, the first two are from the municipality of Shania. Just some motions that they passed in regards to funding support for infrastructure projects, which was supporting the town of East Hawkesbury. And then another one for the Community School Alliance Action Plan and the economic impact for small communities in Ontario study. So they weren't looking for support. They were just passing those on as an information piece.
Thank you.
After that, we will require a motion for to receive the board and committee meeting minutes of the Seaforth and District Community Center Management Meeting for May 11th, Seaforth Fire Board from May 19th, Brussels Area Fire Board from May 25th, the Administration Committee on May 26th, Manasseh Recreation Center / Daycare Committee on May 30th, and the Water and Sewer Committee for May 30th.
Okay, good. Can we have a mover and seconder, please, for those?
I see Councillor Dalton and Councillor Wilby.
Thank you. And questions and or comments, please?
I'm seeing no hands.
Okay, I have one, if I may, to CAO McRoberts, please. The Seaforth District Community Center report. I'm used to hearing budget numbers, and I wondered if they could be included in the reports going forward, or reinstated or whatever, please, just so we know where we're at, under, over, not
In terms of,
not 50 pages, but just a general update, please, of performance. I have-
Within the minutes, Deputy Mayor, is that what you mean?
Yes, please.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Can do.
I have concerns now that Seaforth Minor Hockey has joined the Hensel Bayfield Clinton group about how much ice time
ACH.
we will or won't have. Anyway,
Okay.
anything else, councillors? Okay, all in favor to receive the reports? That's an easy one. Thank you. Carried. Thank you.
Okay, the next is item 15, and that's if there's any other business.
They almost want to see the hockey game tonight, I think, Clerk Rudy. Nothing from that, and no other business? Okay, next, please.
Nope. We do have the bylaws, so there's going to be a few motions here. So the first one is that we introduce bylaws 39 to 42 to 43. So they are bylaws to temporarily close a portion of Sports Drive and Dunedin Drive in Brussels for the Brussels Homecoming events. Bylaw 40 is to authorize a memorandum of understanding with the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority. Bylaw 41 is to authorize a shared service agreement with the Township of Huron-Kinloss for a drainage superintendent. Bylaw 42 is to appoint a deputy treasurer, and bylaw 43 is to confirm the council proceedings.
Okay, can we have a mover and a seconder to introduce the bylaws, please?
Councillor Dalton and Councillor Morrison.
Thank you. All in favor? That's just another simple one. Carried. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay,
And
bylaw
now-
39, please.
Yep, so the first motion here is that it be resolved bylaw 039/2022, a bylaw to temporarily close a portion of Sports Drive and Dunedin Drive, Brussels for the Brussels Homecoming events be given first, second, third, and final readings and signed by the deputy mayor and clerk, and the seal of the corporation affixed thereto.
Mover and seconder, please.
Councillor McLellan and Councillor Morrison.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Number 40, please.
That it be hereby resolved that bylaw 042/2022, a bylaw to authorize a memorandum of understanding with the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority be given first, second, third, and final readings and signed by the deputy mayor and clerk, and that the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto.
Mover seconder, please.
Councillor Wilby and Councillor Chartrand.
Thank you. All in favor? This is another good one. I think we're carried. Thank you.
Okay, that it be hereby resolved that bylaw 041/2022, a bylaw to authorize a shared services agreement with the Township of Huron-Kinloss for a drainage superintendent be given first, second, third, and final readings and signed by the deputy mayor and clerk, and that the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto.
Mover seconder, please.
Councillor Steffler and Councillor Morrison.
Thank you. And all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Okay, and then that it be hereby resolved bylaw 042/2022, a bylaw to appoint a deputy treasurer be given first, second, third, and final readings and signed by the deputy mayor and clerk, and the seal of the corporation affixed thereto.
So if we vote no on this, is he fired?
You just don't have a deputy treasurer.
Oh, darn. We have a mover and a seconder, please.
We don't have a treasurer either, so.
Councillor Deal and Councillor On.
Thank you. Thank you, councilors. All in favor. Better count this one, please.
That is all approved.
It's carried.
Carried. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And now we do have closed session. So if you just give me a moment, I'll just remove anybody from the room that's not supposed. We do have a motion, sorry, before I do that we go into closed. So the motion does read that the council of the municipality of Huron East pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act adjourn the regular meeting of council at 8:38 p.m. to go into closed session to discuss the following: adoption of the May 17th, 2022 closed session council meeting minutes. 17.2, the security and property of the municipality, information technology audit results, and 17.3, a verbal update, advice set aside subject to solicitor client privilege relating to an appeal, refusal of proposed zoning bylaw amendment, and that CAO Brad McRoberts and clerk Jessica Rudy remain in closed session.
Okay, mover and a seconder, please.
Okay, I have Counselor Wilby and Counselor McClellan.
Thank you. And I think that will be carried quite easily and give you a couple minutes to do the technical work, Clerk. Thank you.
Yes, thanks. Just